The most dangerous place in America is in the womb.
How late in the third trimester could a physician perform an abortion?
Through the third trimester. The third trimester goes all the way up to 40 weeks.
A woman is about to give birth. She has physical signs that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion?
My bill would allow that, yes.
After suctioning the amniotic fluid out from around the baby, you introduce an instrument called the Sofer clamp. There are rows of sharp teeth. This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. And out pops a leg about that big, which you put down on the table next to you. Reach in again, pull out an arm. Head in the baby that size is about the size of a large plum. You know you did it right. If you crush down on the instrument, white material runs out of the cervix. That was the baby's brains. Then you can pull out skull pieces. Sometimes the little face comes back and stares back at you.
Why did you end your practice of doing abortions?
For the first time in my life, I really looked. I really looked at that pile of body parts on the side of the table. I didn't see her wonderful right to choose. All I could see was somebody's son or daughter.
My body, my choice!
Her body, her choice!
My body, my choice!
Her body, her choice!
My body, my choice!
Her body, her choice!
My body, my choice!
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the Wright Brothers. We appreciate you taking this time once again to come back and join us. First and foremost, shout out to all of our subscribers in the tribe. You are our community. We couldn't do this without all of y'all's wonderful, wonderful support. This is your first time watching, please feel free to press that subscribe button. Membership in our tribe is completely free, and each one of you touches that button and joins our community helps us reinforce the message: identity politics is dead. Now, this week we have what is quite possibly our most sensitive topic we've ever covered since we launched our channel last year, and that is the topic of abortion. We've seen so much talk about this issue in the media of late, and it's important for us to look at this issue objectively and find out really what the facts are and how we should come away from this after a full preponderance of all the data that we have available. And for more on that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Eddie now.
Yeah, well, like you said, this is a topic that's I wouldn't say near and dear to our hearts, but it's lain heavy on our hearts for a long time, long before we ever thought to start this channel. And of course, it rages on ever so fiercely in the American political debate, even today, ever since Roe v. Wade became the law of the land. There are so many angles you can approach this problem from, approach this issue from, approach the debate from, if that's how you choose to view it. The first thing, though, that I always like to try to get out of the way is, you know, how Damani and I always say on this channel, identity politics is dead. This is one of those topics that is very easy to fall into the trap of identity politics extremely quickly. And of course, it falls along the lines of gender. We see it a lot with race, but with gender, that's the primary order of the day when it comes to talking about abortion. And you'll see those who call themselves pro-choice attempt to shut down the other side of the discussion instantly if they see, for example, two males discussing the topic of abortion. And to me, that is a prime example of the insidious nature of identity politics, where you don't even see an argument presented first and foremost. You see that you are judged, your opinion is judged based upon your immutable characteristics, which is identity politics. And if your immutable characteristics do not line up with what they deem worthy of having a discussion, then your opinion is summarily dismissed. And I think that is extremely wrong. And the easiest way to dispel that, and I'll give you all a little bit of ammo here, is abortion is an issue that affects both male and female children, affects both male and female fetuses, and you can't make a child without a male and a female. So it's a debate, and it's an issue that touches you whether you are male or female on either side of the gender spectrum. I think that's an important distinction to keep in mind. Now, as far as where we fall on the issue, of course, we are the Wright brothers. We are going to be pro-life. We feel that very strongly. We've always felt that very strongly, very passionately. And there are many reasons for that. Damani's going to get into some specific details as far as statistics here in a little bit, but for me, this has been a very personal journey. As many of y'all know, I became a father. To me, it feels like it was just yesterday, but my son turns 2 in June, so in a couple months from now. I'll have a 2-year-old running around. He's getting a jump on his terrible twos, by the way. But going through that process from conception to pregnancy to birth with my lovely wife, Katie, who's been amazing throughout the entire process, it really gives you an even deeper understanding for just how special life is, and especially in those early vulnerable stages. So for me, it's unconscionable to think about ending that life early, especially at such a defenseless stage. We hear people on the left and the right who will go on and on about, protecting those less fortunate, protecting those in worse situations than us. There is no more vulnerable entity on the planet than a baby in utero. There is no more vulnerable, no more innocent, and should be the most cherished form of life, in my opinion, on the face of the earth. But we see how the shifting morality of the day can kind of put less of an emphasis on that, and maybe make it seem like not so much of a big deal to terminate early. And we've seen this isn't an American problem. This is a human problem. We've seen throughout human history that different societies will try to place different values on human life, even as young as babes and babes in utero. We saw, you can read about people in China, women in China leaving baby girls out to die because they wanted male offspring. You saw it in with the Spartan culture, where if women didn't bear male children, they were deemed as having worthless offspring. And those are just two cogent examples. It goes on and on, but the crux of the matter is life is important, and unless we cherish that life and make it inherently valuable, it's going to be something that we can trivialize to the point where if you try to say that you have any sort of feelings for life after the fact, it rings a little bit hollow, in my opinion. And I think that is an important thing to consider. Now, moving on just from the historical perspective, there's something to be said for the way that people approach the problem, in the sense that they view it as a choice. And I have extreme reservations with that. Like I said, going through that process, I don't believe that you have the choice to terminate another human being based upon your position on the socioeconomic ladder, or just based upon your whims. We see it a lot where it's deemed to be kind of a shifting standard of, is a baby viable? Is the mother viable? Can it survive outside the womb? But what it comes down to is really this: do you have appropriate respect for that life that is growing inside the woman? It is a separate entity. It has its own unique DNA. It has its own unique heartbeat, its own unique features. We can go on and on. It is not a parasite. It's just as vulnerable 2 seconds before it's born as much as it's vulnerable 2 seconds after it's born. So trying to mitigate the value of that human life just because it hasn't taken its first breath yet, I think it shows a very shallow thought process, and I honestly I think it can be a very selfish thought process. And I could go on and on, but I will throw it back to Damani with this. If you think that human life is a choice inside the womb, then human life outside the womb has to be even less of it has to have even less gravitas, because human life outside the womb is almost by definition less innocent than those that have been unborn yet. So Damani, I'm proud of myself for holding it together thus far. Why don't you take it away and give us some specifics here?
Yeah, well done. I know this hits very close to home for you, and for me as well. I'm your son's uncle, so I have a soft spot for my nephew. But you brought up a valid point, and the point really revolves around the word choice. We hear that word thrown around a lot by advocates of abortion in these present times. Here's where I come down on the issue. Yes, I understand why people say that this is a choice or what have you, but here's the thing. When you have made a choice, and bear in mind the lion's share of abortions occur for sake of convenience. So when you've made the choice to engage in arguably risky sexual behavior, there are consequences for that. But we live in a society now that almost glorifies instant gratification, saying you can just go out and do whatever you want. There's no ramifications to whatever you do. It's a very hedonistic society. And I find that very disquieting. But when we talk about abortion, we have to also look back through history and figure out, okay, so where did this movement, this pro-choice movement actually start? And no discussion about abortion would be complete without the landmark Supreme Court decision Roe versus Wade in 1973 in the Supreme Court. Since that time, over 53 million babies in America have been aborted. That averages more than one per year. Now, here's what's interesting about Roe v. Wade. Actually, the Roe individual, her real name is Norma McCorvey, and it should be noted that she actually did not have an abortion with what all this case was really about. She did not have an abortion in that case. And later on in her life, from 1999 on until her passing in 2017, she became actually an ardent supporter for life. So it's interesting to see even where that decision came from actually led to her later on in her life having a come to Jesus moment where she realized that, hey, life is sacred, life is important. And here's the thing about life in general. What we talked about actually back in our illegal immigration episode, way back, episode 4, we brought up a really interesting line from William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet play. And that line was, "A rose by any other name would smell as sweet." In the context of illegal immigration we're talking about, it doesn't matter if you call people illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. The fact remains that they are here legally. Changing what you call something does not affect that which it already is. The same concept applies to abortion. You can call, the unborn child in the womb, you can call it a fetus, you can call it a parasite, you can call it a blastocyst, what have you. But you're doing that to deny the inherent personhood of that which is literally right under your nose. And what I find so duplicitous about many on the left side of the aisle is that they will, if we found that there was, a half sentient amoeba on the moon Titan or whatever, people would be going crazy saying, we discovered life on this other planet over here. But you will deny a forming human that same descriptor just because it doesn't suit you. And I find that very interesting about the discourse around the abortion issue, because it is heated on both sides of the aisle. But what's most important is realizing this is actually a living, breathing human that is being formed. And there have been cases, many cases, where children who are born prematurely actually go on to live fully viable lives and have incredible contributions to our society. But it comes back to the point that we need to actually recognize the unborn for what they are. They are people. Now, the left, they always say they care about women's rights and what all. I'd go one step further and say that we here at the Wright Brothers, we care about women's rights, including those rights of those women who have not even been born yet. That's an important distinction as well. The Guttmacher Institute, actually, they collate data based on abortions on a 3-year basis. Every 3 years they release a report. What's interesting to note about that is that through this institute and their findings, they actually found that even though African Americans represent roughly 13% of the population, that we account for roughly 36% of the abortions that are carried out. Even in New York City, there was a report that came out that showed that the number of African American babies who were aborted eclipsed the number of African-American babies who were actually born. And that's really that's a terrible referendum on the state of affairs that we have, where it becomes somewhat of just a convenience. It becomes as easy as walking into CVS pharmacy or what have you and asking for a medication. And it just is what it is at that point. And I think that when we see these instances, we really need to reach out to people from the standpoint of love, because there's lots of hate on the other side of the aisle. They're saying, oh, well, if you don't agree with me, then you're a despicable person. Now, I encourage all of our viewers actually to go and watch a movie that's coming out actually 6 days from now called Unplanned, which chronicles the true life story of Abby Johnson. He was actually deeply involved in Planned Parenthood, who had a change of heart. I encourage you to watch that and possibly either further reinforce your pro-life stance or use it as a way to engage someone else who might disagree with you in conversation. But it's important to have that conversation. We always say on this channel, the only way to make free thought grading is by being willing to have the conversation. So now we ask you to let us know, what are your thoughts on the abortion issue as a whole? How do you feel it has affected our society as it is today? We want to hear from you. We appreciate all the engagement we always receive from our videos. It means the world to us that y'all listen to us talk and then actually feel the need to actually go ahead and give your your thoughts as well. So please let us know what your thoughts are on this very important issue. Now, bear in mind, there will be more on this issue in the coming weeks. I'm sure this is not a one-off video for us because there's so many ways this conversation can actually go. But in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up now. So please feel free to check out our Facebook page, The Wright Brothers IPID. Engage with us on a much deeper level there. And for those of you inclined to support us with a financial donation through Patreon, just search for The Wright Brothers. For more conservative content, please feel free to check out our friends at the Let's Be Frank YouTube channel, as well as the Two Classy Gentlemen podcast YouTube channel for more conservative content. But we thank you for taking this time with us once again. And without further ado, until next time, thanks and gig 'em.
Thanks and gig 'em.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, There'll be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.